Welcome back to Real-ationship Goals, a podcast all about exploring the realities and complexities of healthy relationships. Real-ationship Goals is a project of the Prevention and Education team at the Advocacy Center for Crime Victims and Children in Waco, Texas. If you or someone you know has experienced sexual violence or harassment and is seeking support services or needs more information, links to resources and our hotline number can be found in the description. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of their organizations or affiliates. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Real-ationship Goals Season 6. This is our second to last episode for the season. Thanks so much for coming along with us on the ride. I'm Kyla.
I'm Ariana.
I'm Maria.
Awesome. So we're back for another media analysis today. And today we're going to be going over the song Chloe or Sam or Sophie or Marcus, or Sophia or Marcus. Sorry, Sophia. From Taylor Swift's latest album, The Tortured Poets Department.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I am not up to date, but Maria found this song and thought that it would be a great choice for discussion today. So we'll go ahead and jump right in with our first verse. I'll go ahead and kick us off. So verse 1 says, "Your hologram stumbled into my apartment, hands in the hair of somebody in darkness named Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus, and I just watched it happen. As the decade would play us for fools, and you saw my bones out with somebody new, who seemed like he would have bullied you in school, and you just watched it happen."
Okay. So, there's like some backstory to this as well, because like she put some of her personal life in there. So like when she says someone, and I'm trying not to make it like a whole like Taylor Swift analysis thing,
Yeah.
right? But like somebody who would have bullied you in school, like she's not currently dating, a football athlete. So it's like a jock.
Gotcha.
So this other person that she's talking about is somebody who would have been bullied, maybe maybe on like what you typically see, like the scrawnier side, or like a nerd, quote unquote nerd, somebody who's passionate about certain things, something like that. So yeah, I think as the decade was plays for fools is like they've been together for 10 years, or they've been like maybe on and off for 10 years.
Oh,
And so now it's like, like you were potentially cheating on me with Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus. And now like you see me with somebody who is like what people typically think is more successful, and you're just kind of like there now. You don't have anything that you can do about it.
Yeah, just letting it happen.
I guess I just thought the who seemed like he would have bullied you in school was interesting, just because I was like, that doesn't feel like a positive descriptor, not necessarily of anyone in particular, but just kind of in general. If I was just kind of like, oh, like that's not really a quality in a person that I would like look for a new relationship. So I felt like that wasn't necessarily, and once again, this has specifically looking at the song,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think that making this transition from like this first person that we're kind of like talking about to this like new person she's talking about necessarily sounds like a healthier transition either. So it kind of seems like maybe there's some like unhealthy like thoughts, patterns, and behaviors that have not fully like been processed or healed or ended, maybe even from like her like the narrator side of things.
Yeah.
Guess we can move on to the chorus.
Yeah, I can do the chorus.
Awesome.
If you want to break my cold, cold heart, just say I loved you the way that you were. If you want to tear my world apart, just say you've always wondered. And this hints into that, like, what if I just like pondered on what we had a little bit longer? What if you approached me and just said that to me, like, hey, I've always wondered. And it's kind of like initiating what would we do in that situation, in that circumstance? Will we continue to try to figure out that certain situation, or will we just go our separate ways?
I also feel like it's kind of the forever wondering about and like being stuck in kind of like the what could have been, which can be a very, very hard place to be, especially in like more unhealthy or like toxic relationships. If it's like, oh, we kind of hinge a lot of our what ifs and our what could have beens on like those moments of like happiness or those moments of healthiness. So that's a hard thing.
I think also too, like, if you want to break my cold, cold heart, like, I wonder if he had mentioned or the other person had mentioned this to the narrator, and just say I loved you the way that you were, like, it's kind of like digging that in, like, who you are now is like not living up to my expectations of you, and like you were better off how you were before, whether that was letting the other person cheat on the narrator or however it might be. So on verse 2, it goes on to say, you said some things that I can't unabsorb. You turned me into an idea of sorts. You needed me, but you needed drugs more, and I couldn't watch it happen. I changed into goddesses, villains, and fools, changed plans and lovers and outfits and rules, all to outrun my desertion of you, and you just watched it.
I feel like there's a lot in the second verse.
Oh, 100%.
For sure. And I feel like the second verse even gives some more context to the chorus, even of the like, specifically the like, I changed into goddesses, villains, and fools, changed plans and lovers and outfits and rules. Feels like that ties in also to the I loved you just the way you were, of all of these like attempts to either like outrun guilt regarding this relationship or even potentially like changing themselves to better fit the desires of like their partners and stuff like that, maybe. So to have somebody say I loved you the way that you were could be like both like good heartbreak and like painful heartbreak at the same, like, you know, like that painfully good heartbreak of like having somebody finally say I love you just the way you were, like you don't have to change for me. I don't know, feels like a very complex complex situation.
I thought too it was interesting because I looked at that part you described of like post breakup, you know how like a lot of people try to reinvent themselves, like you have the quote unquote post breakup hair dyeing, haircut, like some people get tattoos or piercings after a breakup. So it's like I thought of she was just trying to like rediscover who she was, and in rediscovering who she was, like his narrative of her changed into saying that she's like now the villain and now she's the fool, and just because like she's going and changing her lovers and changing her plans and everything, like now maybe this other person is like bad talking the narrator, because she's like outrun my desertion of you, because she's like trying to forget who she was with that other person.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The one where it says, you turned me into an idea of sorts, you needed me, but you needed drugs more. It's like going into the fact of how she had to keep an ongoing force into changing herself into their desires to feed their validation and whatever they wanted. But in the end, it's kind of like she's coming to a realization that I know that you need this from me, but at the end of the day, you are needing this more, and it's something that like I'm not willing to stick around for anymore. And just bringing attention to that.
Yeah, I think that line, the one following up, and I couldn't watch it happen, felt very heavy to me, is what it felt like, because the multifaceted maybe of like someone that you love and that you care about, like struggling with like addiction, stuff like that, and dealing with addiction, how that can be so destructive for everyone involved, and that can be hard. And then also at the same time, maybe just also like I just can't like be a part of this, all of which is very valid and very hard.
She also sings like, you said some things that I can't unabsorb. So there's definitely still like, even if she doesn't realize it, there's still like probably happy parts or sad or whatever, and it's like still kind of like hinting at this like there was a what if at one point. Or it could even be the opposite thing, like you know, like, because you turned me into an idea of sorts, like, you put her on this huge, like, pedestal and stuff, and, like, put so much emphasis on her,
Yeah.
but then, like, you turned to something else instead because that, like, outweighed the value,
Yeah.
which is definitely, like, a hard thing.
For sure. And then, so then the chorus repeats, and then we have the bridge, which says, "If the glint in my eye traced the depths of your sigh, down that passage in time back to the moment, I crashed into you like so many wrecks do, too impaired by my youth to know what to do." I've very much so read, especially those last two lines of just kind of like the occasional, like, I don't want to say naivete because that sounds very like condescending, but it's more of like the innocence of like early or like young love, or just kind of like whenever we maybe don't always have the tools in our toolbox to recognize unhealthy behaviors, or people that might not be in the healthiest places in their lives, that we might get into relationships with that are not the healthiest for us.
And if you think about, like, relationships in youth, right? Like, there's still, like, when you're young, like, you're still discovering who you are and, like, what you want and don't want and things like that. And so, like, maybe it's like this, like, trying to balance of, like, this is what I want, but, like, my feelings for you are so great that, like, it's like a balancing act of, like,
Yeah.
do I want to continue this, like, this relationship that we have, or are the things that I want more important to me?
Or a lot of the youth in our lives also, like, if they're in unhealthy relationships like this, like, to know what to do, like, may not know who to reach out to, who to turn to, what resources are available, so you just kind of feel like stuck and isolated and alone. So that could just be oof.
Yeah, definitely. In my youth, my relationships were not, you know, like, you're young, like,
Yeah.
especially like first relationships, like, you don't know everything, and so when it says, like, so many wrecks do, it's, and, like, I crashed into you, like, down that passage of time. I'm just rereading the whole picture.
Yeah.
It's fine. But it's like, to the moment I crashed into you, like, she remembers very, like, vividly that time. And yeah.
And then verse 3, it goes, "So if I sell my apartment and you have some kids with an internet starlet, will that make your memory fade from this scarlet maroon like it never happened? Could it be enough to just float in your orbit? Can we watch our phantoms like watching wild horses? Cooler in theory, but not if you force it to be. It just didn't happen."
I think, like, I think, like, could it be enough just to float in your orbit is like, I don't have to be with you as long as I'm near you.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Or is it enough?
yeah, is it
Just
enough?
being- or do I need more?
Can I just think about you?
Yeah.
Is that enough for me? Will that validate me? Will that give me a sense of security in order to move on with my life?
I love the can we watch our phantoms like watching wild horses? Cooler in theory, but not if you force it to be. There are just some relationships that aren't meant to be, and that could be for any number of things. And there is very much so, like, maybe it's like not the right time and you're not in the right place. So, like, maybe you're both struggling through some unhealthy behaviors that you both need to grow past. And then sometimes though, because like I don't want to necessarily say like sometimes you grow past those things and then it'll all work out, because that's not true. Like sometimes there are just some relationships, like I've had some like friendships and stuff where like even if I like outside of that relationship have grown out of some like unhealthy behaviors and I've processed and I've healed from some stuff, whenever I spend time, like whenever I try to spend time with those people again, I would find myself back in some of those like same unhealthy habits. So I think there are just some relationships that don't that just aren't healthy for us sometimes, no matter how much we may want it to be, we just can't force it.
It's just a chapter in your book that you have to just reflect on, but not necessarily go back to.
And I think too, like, coincidentally going back to another part on the song where she's like, I can't unabsorb the things that you said. Like,
Yeah.
even if, like, when you're trying to force these things, like, sometimes you just can't forget what happened. And so, like, trying to continue on with this friendship or relationship or whatever it might be, like, there might always be, like, if you're not completely done with, like, forgiveness, there will always be this tension from whatever happened in the past as well. And she said, will that make, like, if I move on and I do all of this, will it make your memory fade from the scarlet maroon? Like, if I, like, try to push past and, like, completely forget about you, like, will that happen? Can I pretend like it just, like, didn't happen, like we weren't something?
Yeah.
Poor homie, she's going through it.
And I feel like the outro at the very, because it repeats the chorus again and then goes on to the outro. And I
There's
feel
a
like the
change in
outro-
the chorus.
Oh, there is? Oh,
Yes.
my bad.
No, it's good. So if you,
Oh, you're right.
originally it's like, if you want to break my cold, cold heart, just say I loved you the way that you were. If you want to tear my world apart, just say you've always wondered. But in this one, if you want to break my cold, cold heart, say you loved me.
Right.
And if you want to tear my world apart, say you'll always wonder.
Gotcha.
Because it kind of leaves that, like,
The door open.
like, reopens those old wounds and makes the singer think also, like, maybe though,
Yeah.
but maybe. And, like, putting that doubt back into the head of, like, am I doing the right thing? And it seemed a little bit, like, manipulative to me. Just saying, like, that slight change in the word.
Yeah.
Is, I'm always gonna wonder. If I was like, yeah, I used to wonder, but it's like, no, like, I'm always gonna wonder. Like, this is always gonna be on my mind.
Makes sense. I hear that. Which then leads into the outro of the "'cause I wonder, will I always wonder." That also just feels like it has like the feeling that anyone gets after like a heartbreak of like, am I always gonna feel this way? Like, is it always gonna hurt this much? And I feel like that's very similar of like, will I always wonder? Like, will I always be like plagued with this memory and with this hurt? Feels like.
Oh, Chloe or Sophia or Sam or Marcus.
I guess, do we have any other kind of like thoughts like from the song? Any other big takeaways or anything?
You know, I was just thinking, like, can we watch our phantoms like watching wild horses? Like, rethinking that sentence in there, it's like, can we think about the ghosts of our past, like watching wild horses? Like, when you watch wild horses, it's like something cool and majestic and like it's the unknown. But then it's like, it's also going back to like, can I forgive you? Like, can we put everything past aside? And then with the internet starlet too, it like puts it in like even more perspective of like, well, then you're gonna be like everywhere. So would I still be okay like watching you move on with your life, having children with this internet starlet? And would it be okay to just like be around all of that? Like, would it still hurt afterwards?
Hard song.
She did it again.
All right. Well, I guess we can move on to our relationship goal, which is going to be brought to us by Maria today.
Brought to us by PPS kids.
Yeah.
No. So mine today is kind of going along with the song, like, let go of the what ifs, because you are always going to run yourself into a hole thinking about like the what ifs, like, what if this had worked out? Like, what if I hadn't done this or that? Or what if, you know, anything. I think for everyone's mental health, like thinking of the what ifs and constantly thinking about what could you have done differently, is just not the right move. It is very detrimental to your mental health. Like, it can take on a toll on you emotionally, physically, spiritually. So just, yeah, practice letting go of the what ifs. And it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to start out strong, like, I'm gonna forget about like this relationship or this friendship. Like, it can be like something small. Like, start with the small things and just kind of work your way up. And if you need help getting over the what ifs, like, you know, seek outside help, whether it be from a peer, an adult in your life, a therapist, whatever it might be. Just kind of practice that healthy relationship with yourself to know when to let go.
Sure. Thank you. Awesome. And then I have our recommendation for today, which is to move your body in a way that feels good. So for me, some of my favorite ways to like exercise that are just kind of easy and simple, even whenever I'm tired, is like going on walks, especially outside. I love going on my outside walks, and then also just taking some time to like stretch, just like slowly moving, stretching out some of my muscles, kind of give my body a chance to just kind of untense from all of the anxiety that is always coursing through my veins and through my bones. So just take some time, move your body in a way that feels good. But that's all from us for this week. We will see you next week for the last episode of season 6. Thanks so much again for following us on this journey. But in the meantime, if you're wanting some more content from the Advocacy Center, you can follow us on Instagram or on Facebook at Advocacy Waco. Or if you really want some more of that prevention content, you can follow us on Instagram at ACCVC_prevention. But in the meantime, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Real-ationship Goals. This episode was produced by the Prevention and Education Department of the Advocacy Center for Crime Victims and Children in Waco, Texas. Interested in more content from P&E or the Advocacy Center? You can follow us on Instagram at ACCVC_prevention or on Instagram and Facebook at Advocacy Waco. Be sure to like this episode and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Bye.